In November 1942, Adolf Hitler ordered the Sixth Army's 250,000 troops to hold Stalingrad despite complete Soviet encirclement. This decision prioritized symbolic objectives over military necessity. This is a World War II decision story about late 1942. Germany chose ideology over strategy and paid the price. Historians still debate why Hitler refused withdrawal orders when strategic retreat could have saved Germany's largest field army. The decision came on November 22, 1942, when Hitler declared Stalingrad a fortress city and forbade any retreat despite Soviet forces closing the encirclement ring. Germany launched Case Blue in summer 1942. This offensive targeted Soviet oil fields in the Caucasus. Army Group South drove toward Baku's petroleum resources. Stalingrad became a secondary objective. The city controlled Volga River transportation routes. Capturing it would cut Soviet north-south communications. By September 1942, German forces entered Stalingrad. The Sixth Army under General Friedrich Paulus led urban operations. Fighting continued through October and early November. German forces occupied most of the city. However, Soviet defenders held narrow strips along the Volga. These positions prevented complete German control. Soviet command prepared a counteroffensive. Operation Uranus targeted weak Romanian positions flanking Stalingrad. Soviet planners identified vulnerability in the extended German front. The offensive would encircle Axis forces in the city. Operation Uranus launched on November 19, 1942. Soviet forces attacked Romanian positions north of Stalingrad. A second thrust struck south of the city. Both operations achieved rapid breakthrough. Romanian defenses collapsed under the assault. Soviet mobile forces drove deep into German rear areas. By November 22, Soviet pincers met at Kalach. This movement completed the encirclement. Approximately 250,000 Axis troops were trapped inside the pocket. The Sixth Army formed the majority of encircled forces. Supporting Romanian and Croatian units were also caught. General Paulus commanded forces inside the pocket. He requested permission to attempt breakout. This required abandoning Stalingrad and withdrawing westward. Field commanders recognized the danger. Luftwaffe chief Hermann Göring promised air supply. He claimed aircraft could deliver 500 tons of supplies daily. Hitler faced a critical choice on November 22, 1942. Military advisors presented two options. First, authorize immediate breakout toward German lines. This meant abandoning Stalingrad. Second, order the Sixth Army to hold position. Göring's air supply promise influenced Hitler's thinking. Hitler believed the Luftwaffe could sustain encircled forces. He also considered Stalingrad's symbolic importance. The city bore Stalin's name. Abandoning it would represent ideological defeat. Hitler issued the fortress order. The Sixth Army must hold Stalingrad at all costs. No retreat was permitted. Paulus received orders to establish defensive positions. A relief operation would break the encirclement from outside. Field Marshal Erich von Manstein would command this effort. The Sixth Army needed only to wait for relief. But planners missed something critical. the Sixth Army began organizing defensive positions. Units withdrew from offensive operations inside Stalingrad. Forces consolidated into a perimeter approximately 30 miles wide. Supply became the immediate concern. The army required 500 tons of provisions daily. This included food, ammunition, and fuel. Göring's promised airlift began operations. However, delivery rates fell far short. Weather conditions hampered flights. Soviet air defenses increased around the pocket. Luftwaffe transport aircraft suffered heavy losses. Daily deliveries averaged 100 tons, not 500. This represented only 20% of requirements. Rations decreased immediately. Ammunition stocks declined. Fuel reserves dropped steadily. Von Manstein's relief operation, Winter Storm, launched December 12. Panzer forces advanced toward the pocket. They reached within 30 miles of Stalingrad by December 19. Soviet resistance prevented further progress. By late December, a hidden problem emerged. The hidden problem centered on the fortress order's strategic contradiction. Holding Stalingrad required supplies the Luftwaffe could not deliver. The Sixth Army consumed resources faster than replacements arrived. Relief forces approached but could not achieve breakthrough. Soviet defenses strengthened continuously. Yet Hitler's order prevented breakout. The army possessed mobility to attempt westward movement in late November. By December, weakening condition reduced this capability. Horses died from starvation. Vehicles lacked fuel. Soldiers received reduced rations. What would happen when the relief operation stalled permanently? The answer would reveal whether ideological commitment to holding symbolic territory could overcome the mathematical reality of inadequate supply and declining combat effectiveness. What most historians agree on is that the fortress order doomed the Sixth Army once relief operations failed. Von Manstein's forces could not break through to Stalingrad. Soviet counteroffensives threatened other German positions. Relief forces withdrew on December 23, 1942. The Sixth Army remained trapped. According to military records, daily Luftwaffe deliveries never exceeded 300 tons and often fell below 100 tons. German radioman Wilhelm Hoffmann wrote in his January diary that bread rations had decreased to 50 grams daily, verify source. Horses were consumed for food by mid-January. Ammunition rationing prevented effective defensive operations. Soviet forces launched final assault operations in January 1943. The pocket split into isolated segments. Paulus received Field Marshal promotion on January 30. Hitler expected this honor would prevent surrender. Paulus surrendered on February 2, 1943. The Stalingrad decision had catastrophic strategic consequences. Germany lost approximately 250,000 troops. Only 91,000 survived to enter Soviet captivity. Fewer than 6,000 ever returned to Germany. The Sixth Army represented Germany's elite Eastern Front formation. Its destruction removed this force from Wehrmacht order of battle. Equipment losses proved equally severe. Germany lost approximately 900 aircraft in supply operations. Tank and artillery losses exceeded replacement capacity. The psychological impact affected German military confidence. Stalingrad demonstrated that ideological orders could override military necessity. Commanders recognized that strategic flexibility had decreased. Hitler's command authority increased after Stalingrad. He assumed direct operational control more frequently. This pattern continued through subsequent campaigns. Soviet forces gained momentum from the victory. The Red Army proved capable of large encirclement operations. By spring 1943, the truth became undeniable. Hitler's fortress order at Stalingrad revealed the fundamental tension between ideology and military strategy. The decision prioritized symbolic objectives over operational reality. Holding a city named for Stalin carried ideological significance. However, this objective required supply levels the Wehrmacht could not maintain. Military logic indicated immediate breakout while forces retained mobility. The fortress order prevented this option. Göring's air supply promise proved critical to Hitler's thinking. This promise had no basis in logistical reality. Weather, distance, and Soviet defenses made 500-ton daily deliveries impossible. Yet Hitler accepted these assurances. The decision also demonstrated command structure problems. Field commanders recognized the danger. Paulus requested breakout authorization. Von Manstein later stated the Sixth Army could have escaped in November. Hitler's refusal eliminated this possibility. The pattern repeated in subsequent operations. Ideological considerations increasingly influenced military decisions. Hitler's November 1942 fortress order at Stalingrad demonstrated how ideological objectives can override military strategy with catastrophic consequences. The decision to hold Stalingrad despite Soviet encirclement trapped approximately 250,000 Axis troops inside an unsustainable pocket. German forces required 500 tons of daily supplies, but Luftwaffe deliveries averaged only 100 tons, representing just 20% of minimum requirements. Historical records show von Manstein's relief operation reached within 30 miles of Stalingrad in December but could not achieve breakthrough against Soviet resistance. Hitler's refusal to authorize breakout eliminated the Sixth Army's mobility options while forces still possessed capability for westward movement. The army surrendered on February 2, 1943, with only 91,000 survivors entering Soviet captivity from the original 250,000 trapped. Germany lost approximately 900 aircraft in failed supply operations and eliminated its elite Eastern Front formation from Wehrmacht order of battle. The decision established a pattern where ideological considerations increasingly influenced military planning throughout subsequent campaigns. To understand what happened next, watch our analysis of the Battle of Kursk in 1943, where similar command dynamics affected German offensive planning. What World War II decision should we examine next? Let us know in the comments. This decision remains one of the most studied moments of World War II.